Hello, everyone. You want to say anything to anybody?
Hello.
Hello. All right. Happy.
Hi, everybody. Today I talk with Darryl Schoon, and I haven't talked to him in several months. It was time to reach out. He's a great guy, has a lot of information, and he just updated his website, which is www.drschoon. Okay, and let me just share the screen here, and I'll go to it. It's nice to see that he's actually posting again as well. And he said he's in the process of finishing up a new book. This is his last posting on May 6th, I believe. So you can go and get updates from him. And you'll see he's got quite a few articles there, actually May 22nd. He even has the fear and greed index. It's good stuff. I'll have to go back over there. With everything going on, it's always nice to get an update from Darryl, see what he has to say. Darryl has a lot of opinions like us all, and he's got a lot of history and experience. And he's also a philosopher at heart, I think. And so we tend to go off on a tangent. And I think it's great. The conversation takes us where it goes. So I'm going to break this into either 2 or 3 sections because it's easier for the uploads and the processing times. If you have questions for Darryl, go to his website, interact with him, and tell him hello. And that's it. Enjoy. Peace.
But you're touching on something that is very, very interesting because you mentioned the 60s and and I talk about this with Dan a lot, is it seemed like back in the 60s, you know, people your age at that time, they were trying to make significant changes and then it just died. And then we went into the 70s and 80s and 90s and we're dead man walking now.
Well, I have a different take on it.
Okay.
And it came this week. And I don't know if you're following the playoffs, the NBA playoffs.
No, I didn't even know they were playing.
All right. Well, I'm a Golden State Warrior fan. That's what happens when you live in the Bay Area. All right. And they're in the Western Conference Finals now. They're playing a series with the Dallas Mavericks. All right. And they won the first the first game. I mean, just beat Dallas. All right. And the second game, Dallas came back and just almost took them. All right. This is the third, I think the third game. I'm not sure what it was, but they just really came back really fast. And we're watching it. And ultimately, San Francisco won, right? Golden State won. And the coach, Steve Kerr, who's been through this as a player, as a coach all his life, he said, listen, this is the NBA playoffs. And any series, because you don't get the playoffs unless you're a winning team, unless you got it. He said, in any series, when one team is really beaten in the first game, that second, the team that was beaten comes back ferociously. I mean, and he said, we knew it. We were prepared. We said, we just got to deal with it. They're going to come back. This is what's going to happen. And he said, and it did. Except there's one thing, just talk about it, and there's another thing to play through it. All right. I mean, Dallas came back and was wiping the Warriors in the first quarter. Luka Doncic, 19 points in the first quarter. That's on his way to a plus 70-point game. I mean, what the hell? All right. And the Warriors were losing it, but they managed to hold it together. Third quarter, they stabilized, and the fourth quarter, they pulled away. All right, at the end, last 3 minutes. And this was the topic of a discussion with the group that I was having. And I got an insight into these times because, and it's very interesting that you brought it up, because the 60s was the first this culture got hit in the mouth. All right? This culture that we call America, got hit in the mouth. All right? A generation of which I was a part of unknowingly, all right, came of age, and it was, you got to realize this culture was, or the United States of America specifically, I mean, I know it doesn't like to see it like that, was truly an imperial power. A country born out of the desire for freedom had become the largest empire on earth since Rome. All right, after England. I mean, we don't call ourselves an empire, but we ran it. And if anybody stood up to deal with us, we went after you. All right? That's what happened in Vietnam. All right? They were under the yoke of French colonialism. They had a communist government. They had a war. They decided to fight the French, and we came in on the side of the French and got beat. That was the war of which my generation came of age. And they were trying to send us over there to support a corrupt colonial puppet regime and die for freedom. It wasn't freedom. It was tyranny, exploitation, imperialism. But that's the crap they told themselves and tried to tell us. All right? Well, our generation in the 60s came up above, and not only did we have this battle about the war, that's when the war over civil rights and women's rights erupted. All right? I mean, the one thing that all countries on the face of this earth have had in common is suppression of the feminine principle. All of them. I mean, you go back to the religions in each one. Each one. You know, I mean, the Muslims over there with the women wearing burqas, you know, I call the Southern Baptist Muslims light. You know? All right? But it started in the 60s. And the anti-war movement started in the 60s. And the civil rights movement started in the 60s. And this country didn't like it. All right? One of the things that how they went after us was on the war on drugs. Nixon's war on drugs. John Ehrlichman said to a newspaper reporter in the 90s, he said, you know what? He says, the war on drugs was a way for us to get back at our enemies. The Nixon administration had two enemies. The anti-war hippies, because they were fighting the war in Vietnam, and the civil rights blacks. And that says you can't throw people in jail for being against the war or for being black, but you can throw them in jail for the drugs that they use. That's when they federalized and criminalized at the federal level pot, acid, crack, whatever it was. All right? So I have a very different view about what's going on now. And like I said, it's sort of like I was born for this moment. Why? Because what happened is, in the metaphor of the NBA playoff game, the 60s was a bang, a takedown in the first quarter against the Empire. I mean, I don't know what other people saw when they watched Star Wars and the Empire Strikes Back and who you identified with. I know who we identified with. All right? I know who we thought we were vis-a-vis the Empire. All right? We didn't know we were getting in a tussle with the Empire in the first quarter, you know, but Dharma had it differently. And that's what happened. 50 years later, pot is legal. If you have a pot store, you still can't get a bank account for your business. All right? But it's legal. All right? Women's rights. They got Roe versus Wade, and look what's happening now. Civil rights broke out of the gate, and look what's happening now. Voter suppression. Okay? The way I see it, David, we're midway through the second quarter. The empire got its fist in its face and didn't like it. And it took them 40 years to do what they're doing today. And they're coming. But you know what? All we got to do is keep our equilibrium because they're going to fall. It's timing. They're going to fall. One of the very common thoughts about those who are dealing with today's reality and trying to change it is that you're up against insurmountable odds. Well, what are the odds? I mean, David and Goliath, what were the odds? But when David is supposed to take down Goliath, the odds are 100% against what you think. One of my sayings has been, power is no more control than credit is money. And for you to learn that lesson is going to be a hard one. Because the most powerful think they're in control. They're not. They have more control, but they're not in control. The ones who have credit have money, more money, but that's not real money. In an instant, it'll go like that, like cryptocurrencies. In an instant. That's how it turns when it turns. And we are at a moment in history where it is turning at levels it never turned before. When I wrote my book, Time of the Vulture, in 2007, I predicted a severe economic crisis was going to happen. And it happened a year and a half later. September 2008, markets collapsed. They went on central bank life support and have been on central bank life support ever since. All right? If you want to understand the economy, just Google a talk. It's up now by Ray Dalio, Dalio. It's on YouTube. So go to YouTube, Google Ray Dalio, and the title of the talk is, "This crash will be worse than 2008." All right? When I predicted the 2008 crash, I saw a complete collapse of the US and global economy. Complete. Did it happen? No. Is it going to happen? In my opinion, yes. It's just taken a while for it to happen. It's sort of like they ran over a nail in the road and they patched it up. All right? And 13, 14 years later, that tire is going to give away because of the load it's been carrying of debt is far too big. That's where we're at. So the idea that of where we are and how I see it, I didn't expect to see this way. I never expected to see what we're seeing today, and I never thought that what I was hearing in the Haight-Ashbury would actually come to pass in some form or another. I mean, sure, we're the generation of peace, love, and war, but we didn't quite believe it ourselves. All we were was who we were. You don't choose the time in which you're born, and you don't choose what side you are. But if you do, you choose it outside this, and you enter in the form that you chose. And I believe that. I believe everybody on the planet at this time is here for a reason. We're here for the big dance. And the big dance is going through a lot of changes. Now, none of us like the dance. It's the present state. Those whose world is falling away hate it. That's why they're in such denial. I mean, we are in the third year of a goddamn real life pandemic that's killed millions of people over the planet. And you know what the response of many people was? It's not real. They're just trying to scare us. Screw you. Stop trying to make me do things. You're just trying to control me. Well, you know what? That's one crap ass response to a pandemic. That's really cheap. That's really, really cheap. But what it shows is if you don't like what's happening, that's your last line of defense. Just deny it. Oh, it's not happening. Oh, you didn't win the election. Oh, you know, that's what's happened. But it's moving faster. It's moving faster than I've ever seen it move.
The U.S. is no longer the only sheriff in town. Do you think the actions of Russia and China could influence?
What do you mean influence? I mean, look what happened when the.
Well, for example, how they.
Of course, they're factors. They're thugs. All right, and I'm including the U.S. and the United and UK and all of them. Mm-hmm. They're all thugs. All Britain, the UK, which spread capitalism, was like a street gang. Okay, with imperialism. They went around the world, knocking over countries with their navy, invading them, taking control, and making them use their crap-ass paper money, which they controlled. No one did it like England. No one could go to war on debt like England did. They had a central bank. The England central bank issued money in the form of debt. And debt's a great lever until you got to pay it back. So that's what England did. And the only one that was successful in standing up to them was the U.S. 1776, he said, we have two threats to our freedoms: standing armies and central bankers. Now, why did Thomas Jefferson believe standing armies were a threat to your freedom? Because once you had a standing army, you're going to war. That's all there is to it. And they're going to take you over in the country. I mean, they're afraid about the blacks. They're afraid about women. They're afraid about Mexicans. And they're not afraid about the military industrial complex that runs their ass, controls the media, that plays them like the puppets they are.
I just meant Russia and China could be a catalyst for changing the entire system, couldn't they?
Of course they are. But what role they are, no one knows yet. China and Russia came into power, came into what they are today, the economic aggregates they are today, in response to England's war of imperialism and the West. In the 1850s, one of the largest empires on the face of the earth that lasted far longer than Rome ever did. In fact, it was an empire when Rome was an empire. Hundreds of years later, it's still sitting there, China. And who comes knocking at the door? England. You know? Hey, who's on? You know, we like your silk. Man, this porcelain's fine. And your teas. Boy, there's better than India, who we just ran their ass off the map. We want to buy this stuff. Chinese go, oh, yeah, okay, it's cool. We'll consider it. How much? Well, we'll trade it for silver. Oh, no. We got this paper. Our British pounds. The Chinese, they're the only ones that had seen that paper before Britain. They saw that goddamn paper in 1023 when they did it themselves. And over 600 years, fucked up their country with paper money. 5 dynasties fell in 600 years. In 1661, the Chinese Qing dynasty said, no more paper money. Outlawed. And the Brits showed up 8 years later with paper money. So the Chinese go, screw you, give us silver. So England did. Why? Because England could buy all that silver because they'd run their game on the rest of the world. They were king shit. They were the Crips. They had knocked out the Bloods. So they said, no. But they had to pay. But they bought so many silks, so much tea, so much porcelain that it was costing them their ass. And in 1850 or so, the English go, hey, we're tired of this, homie. We want to pay with our paper money. The Chinese go, no, no, no. We want silver. So the England invaded them and forced them to buy opium, which they were growing in India, and it addicted the Chinese nation. This is what people call capitalism. This is what people call free trade. It's only free if you're holding the barrel of the trigger of the gun.
Yeah, and the Chinese will tell you.
And now,
sorry.
Well, who tried to oppose this was first the U.S. in 1776. And in 1913, we bought the bullet. And we got the Federal Reserve on our turn, on our soil. And 40 years later, we're an empire just like England. Because when you've got unlimited funds, you go around and you try to take over the empire of the whole world. And that's it. Now, so you talk about how I see this country, or no, not how I see it, because it doesn't matter. I'm just me. No one's got my point of view. Almost everybody in my generation is dead. All right? But I remember, I've seen this stuff. And the difference, I think, David, is I think what I see or started to see back in the 60s and everything I've seen since then, because I didn't understand about money in the 60s. I didn't understand about capitalism. You know, I had a rough idea. I graduated with a degree in political science. All right. So I had something. But the vision I have today is very different than the vision I had in the 50s or the 60s. And so everything that's happening to me, David, makes sense. Everything that I see happening today makes sense. I believe better times are coming, but we're going to go through the shitter before we get there.
I'm not sure I'll make it.
Well, nobody is. You have a better chance of making it than me. I'm 77. But you know what?
Yeah.
I don't believe life ends here.
Mm-hmm.
I think Shakespeare was right. This is a little walk-on. You come on, you got a role, you play it, you walk off stage, and you're somewhere else in another role. I didn't believe that in the 60s. I believe that now. And I don't believe it because Shakespeare said it. I believe it because I believe it. The difference between all of us is each one of us has different experiences. And because we have different experiences, we have different beliefs, judgments, thoughts, all of that. And no matter how different those beliefs are, we all think we're right, which is rather astounding. We all think we're right. And because my experiences are different than most everybody else's, I along with everybody else, think they're right. But my vision and my beliefs are very, very different. Now, like I'm saying, for those who don't understand economically what's going on, go to YouTube, write in Ray Dalio. This crash will be worse than 2008, and you'll get an explanation of a man who manages billions, hundreds of billions of dollars, not only for institutions, but he manages it for countries and for the World Bank. And he says we're going through the shitter. All right? I said that. I said that in 2008. To me, we're just finishing up what I saw happening then. And the rest of it, none of us can, even if you can see the future, you only get a little bit. Like they said, David, at 21, you're going to inherit $3 million and you're 13 years old. I'm going to inherit $3 million when I'm 30 because your great granddad left your trust fund. You had an idea about how it's going to be, what you're going to do with it. Well, I'll tell you, when you got to 21, it's very different. When you got to 21, you may have been a heroin addict and you couldn't wait to put your hands on that money because you're strung out and don't have any money. You've stolen everything you can from your family. Or maybe you're wise beyond your years and you've just been waiting to invest it. But you didn't know that when you were 13.
Well, we're all
And-
indoctrinated, right? We're all indoctrinated.
Well, of course we are.
So, you know, hopefully, I think when you get older like us, you learn that there's a chance you could be wrong, right?
You always know you're wrong.
And so,
There's a chance you could be wrong, they could be wrong. And that's where the deal comes down to. That's what the deal is at this time. How do you discern what's right and wrong in a time of illusion and delusion?
very hard right
All right.
now because the information, it's all being controlled and it's all lies.
Well, you know what? It doesn't matter what somebody's telling you. What really matters, David, is what you believe. And I have seen the most foolish bullshit being passed off as truth and being believed by people who I know. I mean, I don't talk to you. I'm talking to you, right? But let me tell you, when we came to Tucson in the year 2000, I wasn't talking to anybody. I was really uptight. I wasn't talking to anybody. I didn't agree with anybody on almost anything. You know, the best way to get along with people is in a restaurant. Oh, isn't that ossobuco wonderful? Oh, this is the most tender ossobuco I've ever had. Yeah, I mean, do you know that the rear legs of the veal are more tender than the front forelegs? No, I didn't know that. Or I can carry on a conversation about food with anybody. But I didn't talk to anybody about money. I didn't talk to anybody about politics. I didn't talk about anybody because I didn't care what you thought. I just didn't want it to get in my head. I didn't want to go and try and explain myself to anybody. And I had no desire to explain somebody else's reality to them. Because I had learned since the 60s, you don't get anywhere talking to anybody else. I learned in the 60s with the Vietnam War going on. You want to talk about the war? Fine. Be my guest. But don't talk about it with me. You weren't going to convince me what was right or wrong, and I wasn't going to convince you. And today, it's even worse. The battle lines are deeper. They're deeper than they were even then. But they were deep pretty much then. Families broke up, went to blows about it. And now, I mean, Thanksgiving ain't a nice time in a whole lot of families. You know? And I ain't saying who's right or wrong. Why? Because everybody thinks they're right. And by definition, that means everybody they think disagrees with them is wrong. That's a real rich way to get together with people. And so we don't get together anymore. Everybody's pulled back, including me. But I was always tendency to pull back. This last 10 years, 15 years is a surprise to me that I came out of my hole.
Yeah, it's a, it's you can see it everywhere. People, I think people just try to, to try to get ahead. You have to make a thesis. You have to make a bet. You have to make decisions on how you're going to go forward.
Who said that? I think it was Spinoza back in 16 or 1700s. He said, "You're at the table. You're already at the table. You got to bet.
You got to what?
You got to bet.
Yeah.
You're at the table. And everybody's betting to the best of their ability. And I know that, David. I know everybody is betting to the best of their ability.
Yeah,
and I don't believe they are. They're trying
Yeah.
like, even the ones who quit
Yeah.
have quit because they're damaged. Because they're blown out and they don't know what to do. You know? Even the ones who are out there with a gun at the croupier's head saying, "You're stealing this from me," and he's about to get swarmed by the casino police because he lost all his bet and he thinks that the game is fixed against him. He's tried his best. And the croupier who's at the table is just hired. He's just, maybe he wants another job in another casino. He can't get out of there. Everybody is where they are, either stuck or moving. And if you're moving, it's because you're supposed to be moving. That's how I see it. This level of where we're at is a deep, deep, deep level, and it's not by accident for any of us. We only see a bit of it. You know that old Hindu story about the 5 blind men around an elephant, and one's got his hand on the tail, and the other one has his leg, and they're all trying to describe this animal. And some guys describe, oh, it's a long thing, skinny thing. Others say, oh, it's huge, you know. Others say, you know, it's on his head. Imagine what if you had to find the elephant's butt, what you would say. And we are. Some are the head, some are the tail, some are underneath, some, you know, but we're all blind and we're all describing it. Which brings me to Socrates' story of the cave that he told Aristotle. That was, you know, the story of the cave. This predates Western civilization. It's the very beginning of Western civilization. This was his story. They were all in a cave. There was this cave. All right. And we're all chained up. Can't move. Only facing forward. All right. We can't move. And we don't even know it. And there's a fire behind us. All right. And between the fire and us, behind our heads, there's people moving back and forth. So what we see on the wall of the cave in front of us is a bunch of figures, you know, stuff like that. People moving around. We don't know where it came from. We don't know what's going on, but we see it. We all see it. And we're all sort of flummoxed. So being who we are, we try and explain what we're seeing on the images. Now, people get in fights about it. I know. What do you mean that's a bird? That's a cow. People don't like it. All right? That's what we see. And one of those guys gets free. Staggers his way, makes his way out of the cave. He's blinded by the light when he gets out there. Holy shit. When he calms down, he realizes that he was in a cave. Fish don't know water's wet. And we don't know we're insane. So he gets out. And he wants to go back and tell them, hey, it's not that. You're totally different. I know what it looks like to you, but it's not like that at all. And you know what the warning is? Don't go back in there. Don't go in there. They'll kill you. And you know how Socrates died? He was living in Greece, in a city-state. All right? The growth where democracy first arose. And you know what happened? They told him to drink poison because he was a threat to the civil order. So, this is a long time since then. All right? And I think that the page is about to turn after a long time. And I know most people don't think that because the book is all we know. The chapter is all we know. We're all here at a short thing. We're all here at the end of a chapter. All right? But it's scaring the shit out of us. What are my words? Can you walk upon the waters? You know, when it's done. We're here, and everybody's at the edge. And I think that ultimately it's there to force us out of our minds, which is David, we're corresponding, we're talking using language, symbols, frameworks, stuff like that. And we appear rational. I consider the rational mind to be a piece of shit. Why? Because all it does is operate off the assumptions that you got in it. So if you have different assumptions, you're going to come to a different conclusion, no matter how smart you are, no matter how well-meaning you are. And sometimes you're not even in control of the assumptions you're carrying right now. So you may be a hapless victim of your fate. But you know what else I've learned in the last 50 years? That this universe is based on love. That contrary to all appearances, this universe is based on love. And what the universe is doing, it's fixing itself. And the fixing is going to be brutal. Why? The universe, based on love, doesn't want to be brutal. The universe only wants to fix itself. But we have gone so far off kilter. The fixing is going to appear to be, for a great many of us, hell on wheels.
Well, especially in this system, we think we're free when we're all on a treadmill.
That's right.
So I don't know. It's like you said, we are all in different situations, different scenarios. What might work for me might not work for you, and might not work for my family, etc. And we just got to do the best we can. And that's why I like to rely on a couple different prayers, Darryl. One of my favorites is Proverbs 3, verse 5 is, lean not on your own understanding. Trust in the Lord with all your heart. Because it's our mind that gets us going the wrong direction.
Listen, that's a wonderful way to deal with it, because you're on the right path. Right? In confusion, you have heard the words that trust in the, which is now the Lord. There's a big, all right? Everybody's got a different Lord. All right. I mean, everybody's got a different vision. Yeah. But the truth is, it's really the truth, is that to me, what the Lord is, it's the knowing. It's the thing that brought us all here. All right. Mm-hmm. And what we've done is we have been taught, we have been raised up to seek authority outside of ourselves. Why? Our parents wanted us to do what they wanted us to do. Why? Were they evil? No, they had our best intentions at heart. Some of them. But they always thought between you and them, they were right. All right? They didn't raise you up so you could think on your own, come to your own conclusions, look at things and discern things and realize this is better than that. My experience may change. No, they tried to put you into a box. Mm-hmm. All right? Now, if you grew up in Syria, I mean, you may believe you're a great Christian and a free thinker. I would wager, David, if you grew up in Syria, the chances are you'd be a goddamn Muslim trying to deal with your fucking parents, don't want you to marry, We have all this thing of who we'd be if we were somewhere else. But the truth is, what's true for that Muslim is the same thing that's true for you. If he listens to his inner self and gets out of his mind, he has a chance. He has a chance. Now, one of my metaphors about life is like a record. All right? You're young enough that you probably know what records look like. All right? And what they are is vinyl spinning around in the middle. And in my sense, my metaphor about it, this is what life is. Each one of us is on that thing. Okay, let's say, and phonographs, they went around, what was it? The slowest one was like 33 1/3 revolutions per minute.
Right.
Then you went to 45 revolutions per minute. Faster. All right. Blah, blah, blah. Well, the faster that phonograph went around, and the further you were out on the edge, the more danger you were of falling off. Okay?
Yeah.
And each one of us likes the excitement. I mean, you have us on that phonograph of life, and part of us is like going towards the edge. We want to find it. It's like something, we feel more alive there. And you know what happens? Some people fall off, and you never see them again. And it dawns on you, oh wow, this is a little dicey. All right.